and welcome to the Moffit Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffit Method Podcast.
All right, y'all, I want to welcome in Coach Grubbs. How are you doing, Coach?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing great. Exciting times, other than kind of the cold weather, but ready for spring training.
Yeah, that's not too far away. You know, it's got to be definitely exciting in the baseball world that, hey, we're all getting ready to go. We're gearing up for a new season, a long season at that, but a new season.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to get kind of like everybody in one building, from top to bottom, big leagues down to just all our developmental guys and getting after it in the weight room. And so, yeah, it's great to have all the strength coaches, performance staff, and athletes in one spot.
Yeah, it's got to be fun, and especially, you know, I don't know, in Houston right now, is it cold? I know it's cold over here in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it's a little bit colder than normal, that's for sure. But for me being from Pittsburgh, PA, I'm like, guys, this is not cold. Come on now.
You're
So,
crazy.
my levels of cold, Texas cold and PA cold, I can kind of do it all.
A good friend of mine, Jason Poeth, he's over at Alabama, and I was with him this past weekend for his birthday, and he's like, man, it's not even, he's from Pennsylvania as well, and he's like, it's not even cold down here. I'm like, you're crazy, man. Like, I want to be inside, I want to be next to a fire, I want to do something like that. I don't want to be out here in the cold right now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
our guys feel that way too, especially from like the DR, Venezuela, and all that. They're like, "What is this? We're not going outside."
yeah,
So
it's
luckily we're going to West Palm Beach, so it's gonna be warmer
right,
there.
right. It's kind of paradise over there, so it's
Yeah, some palm trees, good fishing for the boys. So yeah.
yeah, I can imagine getting all those personalities together. It's just a conglomerate of just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I try to like, find interest with all the guys, but it's entertaining, that's for sure.
I can imagine. Well, like, you know, it was good to catch up a little bit before we got on air, but, you know, for our listeners that don't know you, kind of give them your backstory. You know, how'd you get to where you're at now? How'd you get into this world? And then we'll dive into more of Coach Grubbs and where she comes from and what she thinks about strength and conditioning.
Yeah. Quick synopsis here. So I'm from Western Pennsylvania originally, grew up in the Pittsburgh area. I played a bunch of sports. I was a gymnast. I ran track and field. I played volleyball, but I played volleyball in college at West Virginia University. So I didn't go too far from Pittsburgh, just kind of right down 79 to Morgantown, where I played volleyball. And then that's where I did my first internship in strength and conditioning with Mike Joseph, that's still there, and Daryl Bauer, now he's over at TCU, and Kevin McAdams is over there too. Had some really great mentors early on in my career. From West Virginia, went to Pitt for an internship in the summertime. Then got lucky enough to get on to Clemson with Dennis Love, that's still there now as the head football strength coach. But D Love and Rick Franzblau, big mentors down there. Coach Leggett, from a baseball coaching standpoint, he was our head coach. So that was my first like big baseball experience, was at Clemson from 2013 to 2018, kind of starting as the intern, GA assistant director, and then I went from South Carolina over to Mississippi, got the director job at Mississippi State in Starkville. So I've lived in some small towns between like Morgantown and Starkville, Mississippi. So was there for 3 years as the director, really loved it, enjoyed it, overseeing all those sports. And then I went back up north to be the assistant AD for sports performance at Pitt, so back to my old stomping grounds. Spent a lot of time with Pitt volleyball, kind of being an S&C coach. Really enjoyed working with them. Dan Fisher, the head coach, is an awesome human being and a coach. We made it to a lot of Final Fours and ACC championships, and I actually was able to do an internship with the Pittsburgh Steelers too for a year when I was up there. It was part of like the NFL Women's Forum. They do a really good job with that. I got invited, so I had a ton of fun with that. Kind of dipped my toe in the water with professional sports with the Steelers, and then I was there for like 3.5 years before coming here to the Houston Astros. In a big city, in H-Town, loving it. Texas, everything's actually bigger. It's no joking here. So really love Houston. Spent my first season in the big leagues. It was a ton of fun, ton of travel, ton of training in different weight rooms, whether home and away. Learned a ton, and then I'm going to my second season here in Houston with the boys. So super excited to just suit up and get after it here.
Yeah, you've had all different types of worlds, right? From Morgantown over to Starkville. Now, one of the biggest cities in the world is Houston, Texas.
Yeah, a lot of different types of food here, which I really enjoy.
Oh,
It's a ton
it's
of
the
fun.
best.
Yeah, yeah.
Between that and, everybody's a big Bucky's fan. Ah, I'm kind of a drive-by Bucky's fan. It's not a necessity for me. If I'm with my wife and kids, then and they really want to stop, we'll stop. But for me, it's just it's just another convenience store. Sorry,
Oh,
Texas people, don't hate me.
you're gonna make a lot of people upset.
I
No,
know, I'm
Bucky's.
sorry, but it's
The first one I saw, I was like, it's like the Walmart of gas stations. I went in and there's like anything, t-shirts, sunglasses,
it is.
a hot dog, you name it. There's everything in Bucky's.
There
So.
is. The best thing I guess I could say for Bucky's is that the beaver nuggets are pretty good cereal. If you put milk in them, it's pretty actually good cereal. It's when my kids have them, it's like, okay, I'll do that.
I've never tried that, so
It's
we all get like a power core light
yeah,
and dump it in there and make it kind of protein heavy. But yeah, I
yeah,
love that energy.
but it's not bad. But I hear Morgantown's fun though. I hear it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it was too much fun. Yeah, I spent 4 years there being an athlete and then coaching. But I mean, I loved in the summertime. We would go whitewater rafting all the
hmm
time at the New River Gorge. So if you like to get in the great outdoors, I loved it. It was a ton of fun.
and that's from volleyball player to now you're in the baseball world. I mean, that's two totally different worlds right there. It's two types of athletes. It's two different worlds. It's one season's very long and grueling and day after day after day, versus the other season is kind of a little more spread out. How was that kind of transition?
Yeah, I think just baseball, I have so much more respect after spending. I already had a lot of respect, don't get me wrong, but after going through my first full season with the boys, I mean, 30 games in spring training and then 162 games in the regular season. And then if you make it deep in the postseason, win the World Series, you can be playing over 200 games in one major league season. That's just mind-boggling to me. So I think just I've earned so much respect for these guys. The fact that they're like the everyday players, the pitchers, like getting up and playing. Like game day is every day, from like an emotional stress response and a physical stress response, like, and all the travel. Like I remember my husband, I know he coaches in professional sports too, but he'd be like, I'd be home a week and then I'm like gone a week, and I'm home a week and I'm gone a week for a very long period of time. So he's like, man, with football in the NFL, he would just be gone for 24 hours. I'm gone for like 7, 10 days at a time. He's like, where's my wife? I swear she lives here. So
Right.
it's been
Y'all
really
live.
fun.
Yeah, y'all are too. I mean, what y'all basically have. It's a crazy schedule, right? Because he's with the Houston Texans, and thank God y'all are in the same town. But it's a crazy schedule that you're starting up as they're kind of finishing, right? And so, what do y'all have? Maybe 2 weeks of just time where it's just y'all.
Yeah, yeah, it's tweener time for sure. And I mean, he does a lot of the reconditioning and rehab stuff, so he's still, I feel like he's always going. But he always comes down. Like last year, he came to spring training for a week with like his older brother and his dad, so they like get to kind of live the fun family life of sports. And then we do have like a family trip that's really fun. So he came with me on a trip and kind of saw how we travel and do things. So I'm grateful that our our management makes that time to have that family trip. And yeah, it was him and all the wives. So I felt kind of bad. I was like, you could be the bodyguard.
Yeah, I mean but it's, I think it's awesome that, yeah, y'all seasons kind of run into each other, especially with the games, but in the schedules got to be crazy. But, where football is, you got your 3 preseason games, then you have your regular season, and the Texans had a pretty dang good year this year. They make it to the playoffs, and how does that work out that, for y'all it's a 162 game season and you add in your spring ball, I mean, we're talking 192 games. You can kind of forget about the losses and maybe not bring it as home as much. And I don't want to say forget about them, but you have the next day, whereas football is, well, we have Sunday to Sunday or Thursday to Sunday or whatever it is. How's that in the house?
Yeah, yeah. I think with baseball, it's been interesting because we do play so much that it's kind of like that 24-hour rule of I like we always talk about like, all right, after the game, win or loss, like you kind of get in the shower, and if it was a loss, you like shower the loss off because you got to turn around and play the next day. And I mean, same thing. You kind of have to have a short memory. If you do win, like you're playing, if it's a divisional team, you're playing them in a series. So even if you win the first game, like you got to get up and win the
Right.
next and win the next. I mean, win as many games as you can because every game matters. So yeah, a short memory in baseball in regards to like because you're playing every day. But then football, yeah, if you lose that game, you got to sit on it for a week. So it's
Right.
just kind of like seeping into you. So yeah, different short memory
Yeah. And a week to
mentality.
stew on it, right? Yeah. And it's just kind of that's just always it's always unique to me to think of that, because my background is football, and it's like in the high school world, we have 10 guaranteed opportunities. So for a
Yeah.
week long time, it's well, man, we lost that game. We have in my house we have a 24-hour rule because my wife, I don't think she was ready for this life when she first got into it. I'd already been coaching a few years before we met, and she said she was, but there's still times where she's kind of like, all right, you got to get over these losses and you got to get over this stuff. And uh, but that's just so unique to me that y'all are in two polar opposite seasons as far as longevity goes, but kind of making it work.
Yeah. No, I mean it's great for being at home and problem solving. If it's like, man, I'm running into this situation at work, like especially my first like full-time position working in pro sports, I'm like, I'm seeing this, if you ran into this, and we're just able to like clearly have personal and professional conversations at home. But yeah, we always kind of like approach our relationship as a team, whether it's we're talking about work stuff and finding solutions or just supporting each other, like going to each other's games. And it's helpful because having someone else working in sports, like, what to say and what not to say. Like
Oh
after a
yeah,
hard loss, it's like, hey, maybe let's just ride home in silence. Like
yeah,
that might
because
be good. Or just like be here, or just like let them vent or we
right,
vent. So
professional
yeah.
athletes are professional athletes, right? You're kind of dealing with the same type of clientele.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's great. Just be a team. I mean, whoever's relationship it is, like,
right,
we're easy for each other in all things.
yeah, definitely. So let's dive into some strength and conditioning stuff. The world we live into today is it's so technology driven, right? It's just so who has the
Yeah.
best, and it's an arms race, right? Even 10 years ago it wasn't this driven, and there's so many companies out there that do so many different things, from VBT to GPS vest to heart rate monitoring to everything in between. How, as far as a high school coach goes, and you've kind of lived that life and been in smaller places and now the professional world, how do you recommend gathering and kind of leveraging some of this technology to their benefit?
Yeah, I mean, in baseball, whether it's been college, professional, or all the above, because we talk to high school coaches all the time too. Um, I think you have to remember that it's not about like all the shiny toys. Because I think with college, you get caught up in like recruiting, and you want to have like the biggest, baddest stuff. Like, you want to buy like I've heard of some places having like 8 Nord boards or something, or like 4 sets of force plates, or this or that. And I think I always go back to if I'm investing in a piece of technology, I'm investing in it to really just I have a problem and I'm trying to find a solution to that problem. So how is this going to help me with daily decision making, kind of objective information to back decisions in regards to talking with the head coach and things like that. So I think I've always thought of sports science as I'm using it to optimize human potential and the growth of my athletes through data-informed decision making. So just reminding yourself, like, what's the why? And I'm actually reading a really good book right now, the Sports Science Handbook, and I thought they had a good point. I pulled it up when it comes to know what problem you're solving, and then step one is defining a purpose. So why is this information important to us as a group? Next one, just identify key decisions. So what decisions is this data going to help us make? Identify information needs. So what specific information are going to drive decisions and how? And then ideally collecting the data, But I think starting small, and then building out over time is the best way to go about it. I remember when I was at Clemson and we got lucky enough to win the national championship in football when I was there, and we had a ton of money coming in, and it was oh man, we can pretty much buy anything we want, but so we bought a bunch of stuff, and then we're collecting all this data, and it's just kind of sitting in the cloud. We're sitting in your AMS, and we're not making any decisions based off the data that we're collecting. So I think my mind goes to another portion in this book that talks about the 5 C's framework. So it's when evaluating technology options, let's say to your point, if you're at a high school or if you're at a big time college or pro sports, you have to break it down into the 5 C's. So one's going to be capability, another's going to be compatibility, another one's going to be complexity of the data, another one cost effectiveness, which is going to be big depending on your budget, and then just continuity. So I think reminding yourself of the 5 C's when it comes to investing in a piece of technology. But yeah, this Sports Science Handbook has been, with Adam Virgil and Mark Lewis, it's been really good to for me to go back and just really evaluate and audit my systems and processes from one season to the next. And it can be in college, it can be in high school, and it can be in professional sports. How is this data helping me find solutions to my problems? Or ideally you're being proactive, right, with all your testing and assessment.
Right. And so something you really hit on, when you talked about 8 Nord boards and, all these force plates and everything, you can only do so much. And you kind of hit on that, is there's only so much data you can look at before it's just all right, what is the real issue here? And what are we really trying to accomplish? Because no matter the athlete, whether they're a 7-year-old getting started, doing a block 0 lift, or whether they're a professional athlete, eventually they're going to get bored with whatever's going on. So if we constantly are beating the dead horse with something, it's kind of all right, where are we getting at? What is the end goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And I love that, not only yourself, but your constant research is, how are we making this beneficial to what the issue is?
100%. And I think too, over time, as I've kind of developed a performance science model in my mind, it's been all right, for reporting structures, you may have a report that's coach facing, and it's something they can scan really quick, takes a minute for me to figure out, and sometimes it's color coded, right? Red, bad, yellow, you're somewhere in the middle, and green, boom. So you got a coach facing one, you got a performance facing one of the dietitian, the strength coach, the performance scientist, medical. And then maybe you do have a return to play facing one where it's just individual athletes' profiles that you're trying to bring back with maybe more asymmetry information and all of the above, and before and after, and how close are we to getting back to where they were before they got injured, and then you want to get them even beyond that, right, because they still got injured at that. So I think depending on the clientele that I'm sending the report to, you just have to keep that in mind of how you're organizing the information on that document.
I would definitely need the color-coded one myself,
Me too.
all right, I just need to know what's good, what's bad, and where I need to be in the middle to make sure that we're performing well.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is someone may send you oh, this is my portfolio with these really cool reports and this and that. And it's well, is this helping the key stakeholders make decisions, or is it just something pretty in your portfolio? So I think starting simpler is sometimes better, and then kind of every year that you work with like your head coach, you're building momentum of like, how can I make this better? But then also I think it's so important to have, yeah, I've seen it really successful to have like a coach facing one, giving them just what they need. Maybe it's a one sheeter, and then you got your performance team one that maybe we care about a few other key metrics that the head coach just like doesn't have time for. You know, they're scouting, they're getting ready for the next team that you're playing. So just making sure you're taking a report to that key stakeholder that fits their needs.
Yeah, and so one thing I want to ask you too is, both of us came up through I guess, in this profession through that technology boom, I guess we can call it, where it's becoming more prevalent. It's used every day. But then I get these interns sometime, and I don't know if you dealt with this in the college or maybe newer strength coaches in the professional level, but they're just always the science, the book, the science, the book, the book, the book, the book. And sometimes it's like, all right, look, I know the book says this, but in reality, you just got to have that coach feel, and you got to know what's going on. And the science is great, but sometimes you just got to be able to read a room, basically.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, in my position right now, we talk all the time about feel. Like you gotta have feel for the athlete in the game. And I always think about yeah, probably when we were coming up, it was the perfect balance of like the art and science, you know? Like there's an art and science to the coaching and the feel side, and then like you do need to understand like key performance indicators for your athlete, and you have to understand conditioning and as like strength and periodization and progressions and regressions. But also when you are doing your testing, like what am I looking for, what are common injuries in the sport, like what have I seen in the past. But yeah, I think young practitioners coming up, they're like, oh well, I can run the Nordboard, and I know how to run someone through force plate jumps. And I'm like, but do you know how to coach a squat? Like, and you gotta have both ends. That doesn't mean like I don't want you to know how to do those things, but I think the younger group coming up now, I mean, one, they've been glued to an iPad or a phone, so like just knowing how to work those things is just second nature to them. So I think that end of things comes a little bit more natural to the next generation coming up, and then the actual like coaching and communication
Speaking,
and the
just
art,
speaking in general, and just, yes.
speaking
Oh,
with
yes.
group, you know, that's been a little bit lost, and yeah, lost in the sauce, and maybe they've gotten caught up in the books. So I think, yeah, when you're writing like internship programs, it's become even more like the soft and hard skills piece, like really getting them up in front of people and learning how to like really coach, you know, cultivating that is
Yeah,
really
more than ever, we're teaching them how to coach. And I think
yeah,
it's a lost skill. It really
yeah,
is.
it
Because
is. No,
some of
it really is.
some of the interns I've had here is just they probably know more than I do when it comes to the science part, but when it comes to just being on the floor and building relationships and all that, it's kinda like pulling teeth sometimes. It really is to just get them to be open and know when to turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah, no, and just understanding when you're working with, like, whether it's one on one with an athlete or a group of athletes, like, just, you know, you have to have a certain level of patience and feel with that athlete, and that's not in a book. You know, you got to just, like, get that from reps coaching on the floor. So, yeah, don't hesitate. I'm probably biased towards my career coming up of, like, when I was working at Clemson in Olympic sports, let's say, and I was working with 19 different sports, and I got training baseball players to, like, Jamaican track athletes to like the golfers, the divers, like you name it, I'm working with that sport. But it really allowed me to develop like a certain level of communication skills because I'm working with people all over the globe, you know, the tennis athletes from like Indonesia. But it's allowed me now to get to my position here in Houston where I have a ton of guys like from the Latin community, and then I have a bunch of the white guys too. So like just having that balance of communication skills and then marrying in the science portion, because at the end of the day you have to earn that trust with the athlete first and foremost, you know, to even get them to do any of the testing. So kind of just remembering your roots a little bit.
Right. So what do you think, when it's from your college time to professional or even, back in high school, kind of thinking about when you were in school and knowing the high school coaches, what's the development change from those levels as far as high school to college to pros?
Yeah, I would say just in high school, clearly, like I know for me, like our weight room, like really our football coach was like our strength coach, and like my track coach was also my strength coach. So we really didn't have, like we were kind of the classic printing workouts from online vibes, but like just learning to love the weight room, just learning like how to put a barbell on my back, learning how to just like lift with dumbbells and do a lot of just like the simple movements with conditioning. So then kind of full tilt when I got to college, after being like a collegiate athlete, you think you like know things, but then you know nothing. I was like, I can do it like power cleans and jerks
Yeah.
and plyos, like I got this. And I'm like, wait, I have no understanding of why and like the timing of the year and periodization and all that. So then a harsh reality set in when I went from being a college athlete to actually being an S&C intern of like, you don't know what you don't know. So I think whenever I was working up, and that's why I tell like interns all the time when they're picking internship programs to go and like people to work for, like clearly the Tommy Moffits of the world, like if you want to work in football, like I know my husband even interned at LSU, so like the Moffits of the world, like I was lucky enough to be like around Rick Franzblau at Clemson, and we kind of have like a Clemson tree of interns, and they developed their playbook and their model that I've been able to kind of utilize. But in college, it's very much like you have your long-term athlete development model. So like year one, maybe you're just accumulating volume, you're getting proficient at the lifts. Like year two, year three, maybe you're getting closer to being an upperclassman where you can help teach the freshmen some of the lifts. And then year four in college, you're like rocking and rolling, you're a captain, you're just kind of like a co-coach on the floor. And fast forward to now working in professional sports, like I see it as like every guy's on their own program, and I'm truly like collaborating with them because some of these guys are like the same age as me, right? So they've been training for a minute and having success. So I'm like, all right, like what's worked for you in the past? Like where are we at? Like, and we're truly collaborating and sitting down and putting together the best plan for them to go forward. And they're leaning into my expertise of like asking questions of what have you seen with this or that. And I think just the amount of questions I get asked when it comes to even like recovery modalities to S&C to performance science, I think, it's a little bit more of like a collaborative approach when you get to pro sports of let's put together the best plan for you with the strength coach, the dietitian, the medical side of things, and of course like your baseball coaches, because baseball is a skill-based sport. So it's really important to kind of talk to them of what are you seeing when they're their best, like hitting their best or pitching their best, like what shapes are they making with their body. It's my job to collaborate. And that's why I think player development also, PD department is so big in the professional level as well.
Yeah, and that's, when you talk about kind of you get that one-on-one time where you're kind of developing them individually, even if it's one or two things that helps them have longevity. I mean, I'm sure that's like gold to those guys up there. It's just, all right, if I can stay healthy for this amount of time longer in my career or in my season, that means everything to them.
Oh, 100%. And I've probably changed my like S&C model over time in regards to getting this level. And now, excuse me, I like split it up into, especially with baseball, I have like 3 columns. And I kind of work with Rick Franzblau with this because he's really big with baseball in the college space. But you have output, so maybe for a hitter, it's like sprint speed or bat speed or exit velocity. Is it an issue? Is it sequencing? Is it putting force in the ground? Like I can help with that as a strength coach, right? Then you have like productivity that's a little bit more baseball specific, right? Like are they effective at their sport? So like contact percentage, chase percentage, launch angle. And then the last one is like health, and that's where it comes to the all-encompassing performance team of like I always look at, and I think it's getting bigger now with like the transfer portal of what's their injury history. What are you seeing with that? If they've been an athlete that's been injured so they miss a bunch of games in the last 5 years, then it's like high risk indicators. So you are looking at some of the performance science numbers of force plate trends and Nordport and things like that. And then, the other one in professional sports is just like shelf life of strategies. So maybe 10 years ago when I was hitting, like these different things work for me, but now 10 years later, my body can't get in these positions and I have to figure out a new strategy to still be successful. So I think when you're having some of these athletes that have just been in it for so long, you have to study and dig deep of what can I do to your point, Joe, like get that 1% out of them that's going to make a huge difference.
So you touched on a little bit on the transfer portal. In your world, when someone gets traded or someone's in, is that kind of, do you have to go dive into what they know, or because they're professional athletes and have done it long enough, they can kind of say, all right, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I know. There's really no, in the college world, when you get transfers, it was more of like, you got to call and say, all right, where's this person at, or anything like that. Is that the same there, or do you kind of just trust what the athlete's telling you?
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that was just crazy in my first season of Major League Baseball is, yeah, the trade deadline. It's like in the transfer portal, you're transferring in the middle of the season. In
Right.
baseball, you literally see it on TV. Guys are like leaving the dugout of their current team to go to their traded team and they're walking the other dugout and changing their clothes. You're like, we're in the middle of the season and now like you're just swapping teams. Here we go. But yeah, I think just the MLB as a community, they do a good job of we want to take care of the athletes. So you kind of call and you talk to them about like what have they've been doing, like what works well for them. I think it's kind of like the good old boys club if we do a good job communicating. And then yeah, you can lean into the athlete to be like, all right, let's kind of chat about like where you're at, what you need, and we usually reverse engineer the schedule. Like we'll look at, all right, what are the big stretches when we have 10 games in a row without an off day, or 13 or 17 games in a row is usually the most. And we kind of talk through all that and make a good plan. But yeah, it's pretty crazy when you're having like you're trading athletes in the middle of the season in the pros. It's like
Yeah,
hopefully college doesn't turn into that.
because you got two different parallels, right? I mean, like you said earlier, when you got out of college, same thing with me. I thought I knew everything. I thought, okay, the way I've been doing things and how I've been doing it is exactly how you're supposed to do it, and everybody needs to be like me, versus the athlete that's a veteran that's, does it their way, has taken out some stuff and done all that. So it's got to be just two totally, especially when they get traded and you don't know. And how long has this person been in? Have they been in AAA for this long? Have they been here? Have they been there? And it's just, that seems just like it's a chaotic world. For most of our listeners, the extent of their baseball seeing behind the scenes is something like Moneyball or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's and even like in AAA, like they get every Monday off. Like they actually have a cadence and a little bit of normalcy, but you do get called up to the bigs, and you're like, all right, like there's no normal day off every week. You have to adjust to like we're playing a ton of games in a row, we're traveling a bunch, like sometimes you get like a Monday or a Thursday off, but there's no consistency in regards to like a lot of sports. You have like game day -3, and you like always do a specific lift or
Yep.
something on that day, and it's like
Or
it's
we're
just
hydrating on a certain time to get ready for
yeah,
it's just,
yeah,
yeah, it's
it's
17 games in a row. I heard you say, my goodness. You
yeah,
know,
and even like the fields, like baseball's such a crazy sport that like all right, the Rockies they have a really big outfield, and like the Royals, or Detroit. So like your outfielders getting more high speed running because the actual field size is different. So it's like what other sport is the field size changing on top of that? Like not many. So I give credit to all our guys for just the craft that they do and adapting all the time.
well, let's talk a little bit about that because you mentioned field size and maybe they got to have a little more acceleration or burst there. We both know Chris Martin. He was
Yeah.
with the Astros for a while, and he is a very sprint based guy when it comes to the players at LSU. Is that kind of the world y'all are living in, or is it position specific where the pitchers maybe we're doing a little more conditioning where it's more traditional, or they're in high intense moments too. Sprinting is the full body most explosive thing we can do. So what kind of world are y'all living in?
Yeah. I mean, like, excuse me, from a baseball testing standpoint, 'cause that's kind of like what I've been dabbling in right now between like similarities in college and pro space is for the testing profile, like a lot of things are similar. I kind of split it up. Like there's power metrics, so everyone's looking at like an explosive counter movement jump, right? You can do that position players and pitchers. Maybe you're doing like a rotational power type test on the 1080 for hitters to look at something like that, or I've done with that with golfers in the past. Then like if you want to do some type of strength test, what's going to be safe for them in that regard? Maybe like some type of belt iso squat. You could roll that out. And then speed metrics more for position players. You may look at like a sprint assessment, and we use Hawkeye across the MLB, so like kinematics and outputs in that regard, or using the 1080. And then the last one that I kind of hone in on is more like site specific, so like and tissue specific. So what are we looking at for the pitchers and position players? So maybe with the position players, like you're going to see more hamstring stress with sprinting and running bases, and infielders maybe more change of direction, right? And the outfielders getting more top end speed work. But you're testing the whole pelvis, so like maybe it's the groins with force frame, and then some isoprone for the Nordport, so you can kind of test that the whole entire season without getting sore. And then the pitchers, you're going to hone in on, maybe you're doing like a grip test the day after they pitch, and then you're testing like internal, external rotation on the force frame. So I think the site specific or the tissue specific tests are where I start to kind of separate out. And then for just like pitcher conditioning, I usually keep it like when I'm explaining it to people, I'm like, hey, all right, like pitcher conditioning, like a good base clearly is really important for like, one, recovering, if you're a bullpen guy, like recovering between all these games in a row, because you may have back-to-backs with an off day and then you run it back. But not only just like an aerobic base from like a tempo on the bike, or however you want to get creative, but also like getting your arms conditioned, right? And I'm thinking about spring training as we're building up and building capacity, but like it's not only like actual aerobic conditioning, but also it's that good base of like getting your arm conditioned, and how are you going about that. And then for the pitchers too, a lot of alactic capacity type work, so maybe it's high intensity continuous training and really getting acclimated to that pitch clock, right? Because you have 15 seconds between pitches when there's nobody on base, and then you got 18 seconds when there is someone on base. So just getting used to that. But I know like our starting pitchers, if you're looking at research, usually like the first couple innings, their heart rate's a little bit more elevated, right? Starting the game. And then usually like average heart rate for a starting pitcher can float between like 160 to 170 beats per minute, or 173 or something like that. So like just kind of like doing your due diligence and looking again at KPIs. But yeah, for our position players, like we're definitely building up some high speed running and reverse engineering from the demands that we see from the Hawkeye data, and trying to like build up percentages over time. But it's hard. We get to spring training and you play in like a week, you don't got much time to build up. So that's why it's important to kind of look at their seasonal demands, and then reverse engineer from there. I know I just
I know, yeah, but I would imagine when you talk about the heart rate thing, if you're averaging, in between that 160, 170, if you have a player out there that's, 140 beats per minute, maybe this guy's a little bit of a psycho here. Is this guy that calm where he's coming out in the first inning and just is that even kill that, is it a positive, is it negative? That's the science part that I think people just, your average watcher of Major League Baseball, they don't understand. They look calm like a duck on the water, but underneath the water, those feet are just mile a minute, right?
Yeah, no, I have a ton of respect for just like from a conditioning standpoint, how much it takes to kind of get these guys' capacity built up, to sustain for so long. Because our baseball games, they're 2.5, 3 hours, and now we're adding the challenge system into the equation this upcoming season. So that'll probably make them a little bit longer. You don't get too many challenges, but it'll probably happen towards the end of the game, I would imagine, when things get really tight. But yeah, it'll be an exciting time for the game to continue to evolve.
Yeah, with the pitch clock, that had to be a huge adjustment for the veterans. That, all right, my whole career I've done it this way. Now I have to basically recondition myself. Like you said, you got to recondition yourself to adjust to, all right, are we at 15 seconds? Are we at 18 seconds? Do I need to change my routine? Because everybody has them. They all have their little, what they do and how they do it. And that had to be I don't want to call it a daunting task, but it had to be a pretty big thing.
Yeah, I think like seeing that, and then what we're kind of preparing for now is that challenge system, right? Of being strategic of how and when you're going to use those challenges, and Yeah, so I think it's great to see the game like evolving and changing, but also I think like then you on the flip side, if we're seeing an uptick in elbow injuries, like is it because we're firing off more of these like 96 plus mile per hour pitches per minute, because like soccer, for example, when I work with them, it's like work rate per minute. What does that look like for high speed running and change of direction? And what can we do to build guys up and get them ready for their demands of their sport? But yeah, when guys are throwing harder than ever, and we're putting it on a timestamp, like just sometimes paying attention to, and sometimes we won't find out about these things until 10 years from now, and you're like, oh man, that was a really good idea, or maybe on the other side. But yeah, it's really impressive that guys are throwing 100 miles per hour plus, and
It's
just
crazy
running the
because like
spin rate and what they're able to do. It's just, yeah, it's really impressive.
30 years ago it was 96, 97, 98. You're like you're you're an anomaly. And now
Right?
it's like you better throw 96. You know,
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
like put
not
it in the box.
right.
Hit your
Right.
target on top of throwing really hard. Like, man,
That's
what an art.
what a yeah, it's hitting a baseball has got to be one of the harder things in the sports world, but also being able to put that baseball exactly where you want it has to be equally as hard. So I
Yeah.
ton of respect for those guys, the pitchers especially. So when you talk about lists, I mean, I don't, what is a typical off season or in season or is at their level, is their Olympic lifting still involved? I know in college and in high school, that's what one of the first things we get taught is that we're Olympic lift. This is how we are explosive. And, I've talked to different people in the NFL world and they're kind of they have athletes that they might have not cleaned since they were in college. And but it's, they're so explosive and such good athletes. It's just muscle memory for them that they can get right back to 315 pounds and knock out 4 reps like it's nothing. So is that still a world that at your level they're still living in, that there's still some Olympic lifts involved?
Man, no, that's probably a question. I get asked the question all the time of like, are there any exercises baseball players shouldn't be doing? Like, I get that question so much, which I'm like kind of surprised. I'm like, I never got that when I worked with like soccer or volleyball or even
It's
like
like the voodoo
football,
baseball, but and no one even really
Yeah,
asked that about softball, really, which
yeah,
which is kind
no,
of like
yeah,
I mean, I work with baseball and softball here, and it's like, well, why don't we ask this about softball? We always ask baseball can't go overhead, or
baseball.
baseball can't bench press, or baseball. Well, what about softball? Whether they can't do the same thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
but
yeah, no. But I always premise this with like, I'm never gonna do any exercise with one of my athletes that creates pain. That's step one, right? Step two, I don't think there's any bad exercises, right? I think there is bad execution. So like if my guy, one of my athletes in the off season training at some gym and maybe he's training by himself, but we programmed an exercise and he doesn't completely know how to do it. Like maybe he's just not executing the movement how it should be. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind. I think there are exercises, right, that are a little more provocative than others for like the wrist, let's say, or the rotator cuff. So maybe with a clean, maybe you're only just doing like a shrug or a high pull and you're not actually catching it, thinking through some of these things. And
and I've
then,
seen that very prevalent, just that high pull or that big triple extension. You see
yeah,
more and more that
yeah.
they're connecting a VBT device or anything to it and just seeing, okay, if we're this explosive, we know we can kind of get to this number if we were truly full cleaning.
Definitely. And I think to that point, like you could do a trap bar jump or a loaded jump, but at the end of the day, for me, I'm not married to movements. I'm married to adaptations,
Right.
and especially working in pro sports, you have athletes that have been competing for a long time and maybe there's just certain movements that like the residual effects in the next 24 or 48 hours, like it's creating soreness or pain or this or that. So like that's how I always approach things working with my guys now is I'm married to adaptation, not exercise. Even though I know like my exercise library and I can coach any movement and progressions and regressions, like we're organized and we've thought this through like all S&C coaches. But I think, yeah, try not to be married to a movement, be married to adaptations has helped me a lot in my position now.
Yeah, something that has kind of trickled its way down to our level in high school is that the safety squat bar. And I'm sure that's a big thing at y'all's level because it's easier and you can still load the bar as if they were still a 18 to 22-year-old athlete, is that you can kind of load that bar up and adjust the way you move and have different movements within that safety squat bar. So I'm sure that's a big prevalent thing in a lot of programs.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, our guys, especially pitchers, use them a ton, great to use for lunging patterns, especially with pitchers, we do a ton, like single leg movements are gold for our guys when it comes to like transferring out onto the field for us. So, yeah, it's been great even for like hat filled movements with the handles and things like that and overloading that eccentric. So, yeah, again, getting creative with how you kind of go about
Oh
what you
yeah,
do with your guys.
I'm about to dive into that whole world because we just built a brand new facility at our school where, I mean, there was
Yeah.
no stone left unturned. Let's put it that way. There are handles, there's safety squat bars, there's multi grip bars, there's rows, there's lat pull downs, there's jammers. I mean, we no stone was left unturned, like I said, but it also kind of puts that pressure of, all right, we were doing perfectly fine in the 1,800 square foot weight room with what we had and the no technology and the limited equipment, and we're borrowing this and borrowing that to now we're in the 5,000 square foot weight room. You have everything you ever wanted in there. Now it's time to perform. So it's we're about to dive into that world too, and I'm pretty excited of how I'm gonna change as a coach and how am I gonna, like you said, adapt. I mean, what do I need for this athlete or this position versus this guy versus that, and I'm gonna need a little bit more help, I think.
No, I mean, the best ability is adaptability, whether it's good or bad, adaptability and availability is always important, right? But that's great to hear that. I mean, I keep going into more and more like high school weight rooms and seeing the level and the investment people are putting into it. And it's only going to help us in the pro level of you guys developing athletes to keep them safe and healthy and teach them good movement quality, is going to be key for that foundation.
That's always my like back of the mind. I don't want to say fear, but it's like when I have a guy or girl go on to I want them to be ready. Like, were you ready? And that's the first thing I ask them. It's never, I guess this is a selfish thing for me to ask, but it's behind how are you doing is, were you ready when you got there? Like, were you prepared? Is there anything you did that you weren't ready for? And, I love when they come home and I'm a real big open up the weight room for them over the summer. If you want to come and lift, I'll give you an hour of time that I'll be there. Whether you want me to program or you're doing your program, I'll give you an hour of my time to come home and get your lift in. But that's always something that I'm like, all right, were you ready to go? Like, is there anything I didn't prepare you for? Because I need to know so I can adjust to what I'm doing the next year.
Yeah, I feel like it's like that when you send your interns out to get their first full-time position too. Like, was there anything in our internship curriculum or graduate assistant curriculum that like you got to that full-time role and you weren't ready for, and that goes back to like we're always auditing our systems, and I think that's where going back to some of the sports science equipment, it's like, all right, if they're in a strength block or a power block and you're testing and assessing and you're not getting that adaptation that you like expect or want or need, it's like, all right, I can use sports science pieces to even like audit my programs, or are we doing too much out on the pitch or the field or whatever, or the court? But yeah, I think it's always our job as S&C coaches to continue to audit our systems and processes.
Yeah, it helps as the people above you too. I've learned that slowly that this is what I always want to do. And now I'm the head of the school where I'm doing every sport, but everybody's my boss now. And so I need to make sure that everybody's happy and kind of convince them into the way that's going to help us get better. So we just got our first two GPS vests here, and I'm about to throw them on girls soccer next week for their first round playoff game and kind of sell that to my head football coach who, he's got an extensive background in strength and conditioning, but sometimes it's hard to see what you can't see, right?
Definitely. No, that's awesome to hear. That's really, really cool. And it's always nice like hearing that it's like, all right, we're working with these field sports, I can show and get buy-in from using a soccer team to a football team to basketball to volleyball, because when I was coming up, I just always thought about things of like energy system development. I'm going to learn that through like helping with track and field and soccer's and lacrosse to rotational sport athletes, like a golf, a tennis, a softball, a baseball, like my track throwers, the quarterbacks. So I think, yeah, like overhead sports, volleyball, football, quarterbacks, all that. So I think, yeah, the more that you can work with all these different sports, whether it is sports science or like training oriented, it just builds out your toolbox that much more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the best way. To me, some of the best coaches come from a smaller place where they had to do,
Everything.
more with less, and you had to wear all these different hats, and you end up creating the system to where you get to where you're at, that it works at a bigger place. And I just think that's a huge tell sign of a good coach, is that they can do multiple different things and wear multiple different hats.
Heck yeah, for sure.
So, you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, but you vaguely touched on it, that, when y'all go to spring training, your husband comes down, he kind of gets to be the partner that is there with you in a male dominated world, right? It's obviously not a female dominated profession in the MLB or in the NFL, but you kind of get to live that. And so, was there any adaptation? Because in college it's more prevalent, right? Was there any adaptation that you had to have getting into the professional world of being a female in a male dominated profession?
Yeah, I think at first, like a lot of the time, a lot of the players, like I'm their first ever female strength coach, a lot of them. So I think, and even like coaches on our staff, they had never worked with a woman in baseball. So just like having a woman in the clubhouse is just new, not bad, not good, just like new to them. So I think the one cool thing in baseball though is like a lot of these players and coaches have daughters, so like they're around women, all the time
Right.
for their wives. But like it was cool to see when like some of our guys would bring in their daughter into the weight room and they would see me and they were like, oh, like what's up? So I think it's just like it's starting to normalize the next generation of like, oh, I saw Steph in the weight room like working my dad out, like that's normal, so I think it's been really cool to see. And just how like it starts from the top, like our manager Joe, how supportive he is of me, and he has daughters too, but like him supporting me and seeing me throughout like my interview process a while back now, of like I just want to win, so I want to hire the best coaches. He never looked at me as like a female coach, and I felt the same way. Like, I mean, make it about the role, not about the gender, is what, like, I had a male mentor tell me that early on. Because maybe you are, like, if you're a female coach out there and you're, like, overthinking, like, can I do this? Like, there's not many people doing this, can I kind of go back to, yeah, having a lot of great male mentors be so supportive of me and coaches. And I think just early on when I started interning, like, with football at West Virginia with Daryl Bauer and Mike Joseph, like, they never, like, treated me differently or weren't as hard on me because I was a female strength intern. They always just like the expectations were the same and the standards. So I'm really grateful for all my male mentors kind of coming up in the field, just pushing me and having really high expectations for me and never thinking I couldn't get a position.
Right. If you're good at your job, you're good at your job. It shouldn't matter anything
Yeah.
else, right? And
Yeah.
we had a former guest, Tessa Grossman, over at Colorado, and she's kind of on the same level. She spent some time with volleyball at different places, with girls basketball at different places, and then kind of broke out in the NFL actually as an intern in the NFL, and then fell in love with the football side of it, and was volunteering at different places to be a part of football, and then just boom, she falls into Colorado, and that's where she's at now as an assistant, one of the five on the field, that, or one of the five assistants that, with the strength and conditioning program. Is just like, and you wouldn't even think it walking by her. She was a college softball player that just
Yeah.
boom, here we are in this world. So, when we talk about this, do you have advice for a young girl who's interested in this profession? Because I just had my first female intern, and we're trying to get her a landing spot. But what advice do you have for young females that are interested in this world?
Yeah, I think I just think back to at first when I was getting in the field and I like knew no one. And I remember being like, oh, I should reach out to other females like in the field doing it and get advice from them. But I'd probably tell my younger self, like, don't just reach out to the females doing it. Like, reach out to some of the heavy hitter male strength coaches and mentors out there too, and build relationships with them. Because they'll tell you what you like need to hear, like, hey, this isn't going to be easy. Like, and it's not easy for male or female to get into strength and conditioning, right? It's tough. So I think don't pigeonhole of like, I'm only going to reach out to like Steph and Tessa because there are other females doing it. Like, look into like what guys are out there doing a really good job and who's really, really intelligent and who's running like a really great program. Call them up and ask questions, and pick their brain too. So I think it all goes back to just like surrounding yourself with the best professionals to get the best advice. And I always think about projectability, right? And that's where like the name Moffit, Moffit method, like he's put so many great professionals out there. His tree is just massive. So it's like, hey, Moffit's a great person to reach out to because he's given a lot of great advice and projected people into positions. Or for me, it's like a Mike Joseph or a Daryl Bauer, like our West Virginia tree or the Clemson tree. So I think just finding mentors that have been like great mentors to others and have great internship programs and pour into their people that's who I want to call and get advice from. So I would definitely highly recommend to young women, like, don't just reach out to the females that are doing a really good job, but reach out to the males as well, because they're going to be able to give you some really solid and sound advice and help you get into some doors that who knows what, and you'll work in a Major League Baseball. So
right.
Yeah.
And that's something I don't think I've ever turned anyone away that's asked me, whether it's a new high school strength coach or an intern, something I'll never understand. And Coach Moffit lives and dies by that. He'll pick up his phone and call you personally, and he will make sure that you're taken care of, and he'll send you everything you need. But something I'll never understand is there is people out there that refuse to tell you how they do things, or give you advice or anything like that, which is crazy to me because, let's face it, the meat and potatoes are the meat and potatoes. We're all basically doing the same thing. It boils down to your culture and, like we've talked about, what your needs are, and that's what, if we want to get respect in this profession, we have to continue to build it that way. And I think that's a great point you had, is just calling up who's the best and who do I know is going to lead me in the right direction.
Yeah, and who's just poured into people. I know
Right.
as I've gotten older in the field, I like think about all the people that took the time to talk to me when I was an intern at a GA and like give me sound advice of how to get to where I'm at now. So I think we just have to continue to cultivate a system in S&C where a lot of people did that for you. So now it's your job to do that when people are like DMing you or emailing you and things like that. I really try to take the time to help young people, because I couldn't be where I'm at without all my great mentors.
Absolutely. And that's great stuff. And, I can't imagine, you've probably forgotten more than you know these days, I bet, just the amount of stuff and the amount of experiences you've had. So
Yeah.
it's a tremendous amount, but my favorite part of this whole thing is kind of asking our off the wall questions.
Oh,
So,
okay, Joe.
so I got a few new ones here. You've had a lot of, like I said, experiences. You've probably forgotten more than you know these days, and there's so much going on. But in the places you've been, from Morgantown all the way to Houston, Texas, give me best spot to eat if I'm stopping in one of these spots.
Oh man, yes. Being from Pittsburgh, originally, like I love Thai food back in Pittsburgh, which probably sounds crazy. So Pussidy's Garden, if you like Thai food, you need to go there. The ambiance and the vibes are great. But Houston, oh my gosh, if you're passing through H-Town, go to Traveler's Table. Amazing. Starkville, Mississippi, I love coffee, so I'm going a little bit to the left here, to the right. But Strange Brew, they have this blueberry cobbler coffee that's just like you don't find anywhere. I order it
Really?
online to my house to this day. So yeah, blueberry cobbler coffee, Strange Brew, in Starkville, Mississippi, kept me alive for a lot of years when I was working there. So yeah, those are Traveler's Table, food from all over the world. So go there in Houston. They have great brunch. They have like these purple sweet potato pancakes, crazy but to die for. I put some of our players on it. So yeah, those are a few.
those are a few. That's awesome stuff. So I'm gonna have to try next time I go to Houston. I'm gonna have to go over there and try that for sure.
Salad table. Yeah. I know people always talk about barbecue or whatever. I'm like, I lived in South Carolina, Texas, whatever,
Kind of
Mississippi, but
experienced all the barbecue. Yeah.
yeah. You've had all the great food, I'm sure, in Louisiana. Oh my gosh. Crawfish vibes. Let's go.
There's some good stuff out here, but it's a dangerous world because you can get a little bit carried away. Really, everybody's like, "Oh, New Orleans and Baton Rouge has great food," but it's really like the Acadian area, and that's, the west part of Louisiana, west to central part is really where the great food is. The Lafayette, up to Alexandria. One of the better cooks I know is right there in Ville Platte, Louisiana. My brother-in-law is an
Heck
amazing
yeah.
cook that right there in Ville Platte. So that's where a lot of your great food in Louisiana comes from. My next one, look, we're getting ready for a game, whether it's when you're an athlete or now as a coach. What's our go-to song or genre of music?
Oh man, genre of music. This may sound crazy, but I love Buck Cherry, which is like a really old like rocker type vibe, and some good John Cena. I'm here for some good like WWE walkout song theme vibes. So I know that's probably very lame, but
No, heck no, because there's no better
or
day I
Lil
have in
Wayne,
the.
like throwback
Yeah,
Lil Wayne. I'm here for it. Let's go.
yep,
50 Cent, Houston vibes,
yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
If there's no better day I have in the weight room sometimes than when I put on like Stone Cold's theme song or like, the
Yes.
DX theme song where it's like, all right, it's time to start the day. Let's get going. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
We're big wrestling fans, not only in my house, but in the office I work in, even to the extent of we had like a birthday party for one of our coaches and everybody dressed as wrestlers.
That's
And like
awesome.
we
Like
had a
someone asked me
ring.
the other day. Someone asked the other day about Halloween costume, and I was like, "Oh, someone did tell me to dress up as Ronda Rousey the one year,
Yeah.
and we had some similarities." I was like, "I know my next Halloween costume."
Yeah,
So,
my wife dressed up as China, and I dressed up as this is a throwback, but Conan. He was in like
oh,
the
got it.
LWO. He was WCW guy. Like we both. It was a good costume. You had Goldberg's there. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin's there. You had we're
With
big
like,
wrestling fans, so I love that answer that we're talking wrestling theme songs. That's great.
yes, yes, let's go. That could be the cover of this podcast.
Yeah,
Just a bunch of
absolutely.
wrestling.
Yes, that'd be great. Just Royal Rumble's coming up, so that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, last one right here, and this has been my favorite question to ask because it lets me dive into the mind of who I'm talking to here. But
Oh
you're
God.
on a you're on an island and you're stranded there. What's one piece of weight equipment that you're going to bring on the island, whether it's functional or whether it's something that you really just want to lift with?
Oh man. I mean, I feel like a barbell just makes sense to me.
Hmm.
And I can like kill animals with it maybe if I'm trying to survive. I could just like peg it or like swing it. So yeah, it could be multi-purpose. Maybe start a fire in some way off of it. I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah,
barbell just is talking to me. I mean, or a kettlebell, a
there.
big heavy one,
Yeah,
because I
that's what
can move
I've heard
upper
that one.
body with it. Yeah, maybe I'll switch to a heavy kettlebell. That could
Heavy
be fun.
kettlebell. Yep, you can press it,
Yeah,
you can pull it,
I
you
could row
can drag it.
it,
Yeah, you could do.
lot it.
Yep,
Yeah, I can still
everything.
swing that and like hit something to kill my next meal. So I'm here
Yeah,
for it. I'm
I've
still
seen
big.
some. Yeah, some. It's crazy the different personalities you get or the different thought process. I had a athletic trainer on here, and her answer was a battle rope because her
Oh,
her her whole mindset as an athletic trainer is we're problem solvers and we got to figure out what the issue is and go from there. So if I have a battle rope, I can use it for different things. Or you had someone like our friend Chris Martin who said, I'll take a
oh yeah.
trampoline because I'm going to have fun. If I'm stranded there and that's the end, I'm going to have fun while I'm doing it."
I love that about Chris. He's creative and very smart. So I
Very, oh
feel
my gosh, very, very highly intelligent.
yeah, that could be a good time for sure. I like it.
Yep. So kettlebell, barbell, those are two great answers, but that's that's definitely what I
Not
want to hear.
hyperbole though. I gotta be
Yeah, but
better.
yeah, but I
Next
but I
time.
But I get into the mind of where we're at here and what our basis of our weight room time is.
Yeah.
So, well, Coach, I can't thank you enough for taking time. I know, like you said, spring ball is getting ready to start. You're getting ready to go off to Florida and have a great time in the sun and not this cold weather we're getting down here in the southeast region. So I can't thank you enough for coming on today, and I can't wait for our listeners to get a lot of these knowledge bombs that you've dropped today.
Oh man, no, thank you, Jim, and congrats on your new weight room. That's always such an exciting time. It's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome. Hopefully, at some point, I can stop by, sling some weights around.
Whenever you're passing through or in the area, come on by. The door's wide open.
Heck yeah, Joe. Thank you so much.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Moffit Method Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and empowering as you continue your journey in sports and strength and conditioning. Before you go, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we share more tips, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Just search for Moffit Method Podcast and hit that follow button. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you could leave us a review or share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us out. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, the key to success is just one more workout away. Until next time, stay strong and stay inspired.